I still can't believe it happened, like a scene ripped straight out of a bad movie. Except this was real. It was Silicon Valley, and it cost a family dynasty 3 generations of work. It all because one woman couldn't handle seeing a black man sit where she thought he didn't belong. This story, it's the one I'm about to tell you. It isn't about a CEO getting splashed with wine that's just the headline bait. It's about the slow, silent poison of entitlement. And the moment it collided with a force so powerful, so meticulously prepared, that the entire universe seemed to conspire to bring that woman down. And honestly, I was there, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Let's rewind just 12 hours to the annual Apex Innovation Gala at the St. Francis Tower. Imagine crystal, caviar, and the kind of old Bay Area money that smells faintly of redwood and inherited lawsuits.
All right.
Villain, Prudence Albright, swept in, draped in diamonds, and the certainty that she was the main character. Prudence was the wife of Thaddeus Albright, CEO of Ares Defense Systems, a name that had been building missiles and satellites since the Korean War. They were old guard. But lately, Ares was, well, hemorrhaging cash. They were losing contracts. 2 younger, leaner companies specializing in AI warfare and quantum encryption, the kind of stuff Prudence wouldn't know from a TikTok dance. Thaddeus, poor, sweaty Thaddeus, whispered to her in the limo, "Prue, tonight is everything. The Vanguard contract, it's $1.5 billion, and it saves us. The Pentagon Select Committee is announcing their choice tomorrow, and the decision-makers are all here." No drama, please. Prudence barely heard him. She was already busy sending her lobster bisque back because the young server, a student, probably had a visible forearm tattoo. All evening, Prudence was a masterclass in casual cruelty. She'd lean in and say, "Oh, darling, your vintage is so brave," to women she disliked, or loudly ask if the Latina coat check attendant knew how to pronounce her own name. She didn't see people. She saw props, background noise, or, at best, potential threats to her curated social hierarchy. But she had a special radar for the truly out of place, which to her meant anyone who didn't look like they stepped off a 1950s yacht catalog. Then, precisely 8:30 p.m., Elias Vance walked in. Elias wasn't flashy. He was wearing a deep charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, and moved through the room with a gravity that seemed to pull attention toward him, not demand it. He didn't work the room worked him. Prudence noticed him instantly, not because he was black, but because he carried the kind of quiet authority that she, with all her inherited wealth, could never manufacture. He looked comfortable, and that infuriated her. She hissed to her friend, "Who is that?" "He's seated with Colonel Davies and that Senator Thaddeus. Go check his invite. He must be some kind of diversity filler, trying to glom onto our deals." Thaddeus, who was halfway through a desperate conversation about drone parody, muttered, "Prue, for God's sake, not tonight. Don't start, just leave it." But Prudence couldn't leave it. Throughout dinner, she stewed. Elias Vance was laughing easily with the officials. They were talking seriously, not nervous small talk, but strategic, high-stakes conversation that should have, by tradition, included the Albright name. Prudence felt 3 generations of privilege burning in her chest. She stood up, wine glass clutched like a grenade. She told herself she was defending her legacy, her family's rightful place. She was going to correct the seating arrangement. She strode over to the table. "Excuse me," she announced, loud enough to stop conversations. 10 feet away? "I believe there's been a mistake with the seating. This section is reserved for actual defense partners, the people who built this country." Not. She paused, her lip curling in a gesture of pure, unadulterated class venom. ... Charity cases. Colonel Davies, a sharp-featured woman from the Air Force, stiffened. "Mrs. Albright, Elias is our guest." Elias Vance looked up, his expression utterly neutral, like a seasoned commander watching a predictable, poorly planned skirmish. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" "My invitation specified table 7. Your invitation?" Prudence laughed, a short, brittle sound that rang fake against the crystal. "Who sponsored you? Some community outreach program? Trying to get a piece of the real player's pie? The executives shifted uncomfortably. Prudence was getting loud. Cameras discreetly, of course, were starting to lift. The whole room was holding its breath, smelling blood and drama. Actually, ma'am, Elias said, his voice quiet but carrying the force of a drawn weapon. I'm here in my capacity to evaluate potential partners for our next major defense initiative. Prudence threw her head back and shrieked with laughter. Evaluate us? Oh, that's rich. What are your qualifications? Did you take an online course? No, I know what this is. It's a quota. I'm tired of pretending that affirmative action. And diversity metrics create actual qualifications. Seats at this table belong to families like mine. She was shouting now, ensuring everyone heard her ugly truth. Thaddeus was pushing through the crowd, his face ashen, mouthing the word stop. Elias Vance stood up slowly. He was taller than she expected, and his posture was impossibly straight, commanding. Mrs. Albright, I think there may be a misunderstanding about— Don't you dare interrupt me, Prudence snapped, pointing a manicured finger at his chest. My family has been serving this country since before your people even had the right to vote. Before your people were even allowed in the same buildings as real Americans. The words were poison. Even her own friend gasped. Thaddeus reached the edge of the crowd, too late. Prudence raised the wine glass high, like a conquering hero. Get this monkey away from my table, she screamed. You people need to learn your place, and your place is not here pretending to be something you're not. The red Cabernet poured down over Elias Vance's head in a slow, perfect arc, soaking his suit and dripping onto the white linen like spilled blood. The silence that followed wasn't just shock, it was the sound of destiny shifting. Prudence slammed the empty glass down. Did you really think anyone was fooled by your little charade? She sneered, basking in what she thought was total victory. And that's when it happened. Elias Vance just smiled, not angry, not bitter, just a cold, knowing smile, the kind you give to a child who has just broken something priceless and is still too dumb to realize the cost. Interesting choice, Mrs. Albright, Elias said, pulling a silk handkerchief from his pocket and dabbing at the wine on his face with surgical precision, very revealing. This has been highly educational. Security started to move in, but Elias waved them off. No need. Mrs. Albright has simply concluded my assessment. He turned, pausing just long enough to lock eyes with Thaddeus, who looked like he was about to vomit. Mr. Albright, some mistakes can't be undone. I hope the wine was worth it. The moment Elias Vance walked away, the ballroom exploded. Phones weren't just taking photos anymore. They were uploading video. Hashtag Aries Winegate started trending worldwide before Prudence had even returned to her seat. She was triumphant, oblivious, having no idea that she had just committed corporate suicide in front of 300 witnesses. Asterisk the next morning. The consequences hit Thaddeus like a shockwave. He watched the pre-market trading. Aries Defense stock down 10%, down 18%, ... Then suddenly, down 35%. The algorithms were dumping it like radioactive waste. His phone was a vibrating monument. To panic, but the real fear came from the report on Elias Vance. Thaddeus's best private investigator found nothing. No LinkedIn, no Instagram, just a scrubbed digital ghost. Born in Detroit, West Point graduate, military service, sir, the investigator whispered. The only people with this little digital footprint are, well, the kind of people with classified stamped all over their lives. Thaddeus's blood turned to ice. Before he could process that, the phone rang. Colonel Davies. Mr. Albright. This is Colonel Davies. We need an urgent meeting. Today, at the Pentagon. Can you tell me what this is regarding? Thaddeus pleaded. It concerns last night's incident with General Vance. The line went dead. General Vance. The man his wife called a monkey. And soaked in wine was a general. Thaddeus rushed to the Pentagon, his knees shaking. He was led into a high-security conference room, and there, sitting at the head of the table in a crisp, star-studded uniform, was the man who, just hours ago, had wine dripping from his chin. General Elias Vance, United States Army Director. of the Joint Technology Task Force, please sit down. Mr. Albright, General Vance said, his voice flat, professional, and carrying the silent weight of command. We have quite a bit to discuss regarding your company's suitability for the Vanguard contract. Thaddeus stammered apologies. General, I assure you my wife's behavior was unacceptable racist. It doesn't reflect our corporate values. On the contrary, Mr. Albright, the general interrupted gently, placing a tablet on the table that played the viral video loop of Prudence screaming reveals them completely. We at the Department of Defense don't just evaluate your satellite technology, we evaluate your character. We're entrusting you with billions of taxpayer dollars, and more importantly, with our soldiers' lives. We need to know who we're partnering with. He continued, his words slow and meticulous, like a judge reading a death sentence. Ares Defense was technically our top pick for the $1.5 billion Vanguard initiative, until last night. Your wife called me a monkey in front of 300 witnesses, then spent the morning on social media defending her views. We're not just seeing personal prejudice, Mr. Albright. You're seeing a corporate culture that tolerates and perhaps cultivates that exact sentiment. The general looked Thaddeus dead in the eye. I want you to know who I am. I enlisted as a private, earned my commission in the field after 3 tours, and rose through the ranks despite facing exactly the kind of prejudice your wife demonstrated. I now oversee the entire joint technology budget, and I personally approve or reject every major contract in this sector. Thaddeus felt his family's 3-generation empire crumble beneath his feet. The decision has been finalized. General Vance stated, the Vanguard contract has been awarded to Lockwood Dynamics. $1.5 billion. Gone. Furthermore, the colonel added, we are initiating a comprehensive review of all Ares Defense existing contracts. Any evidence of systemic discriminatory practices will result in immediate termination. Thaddeus begged. He pleaded. He offered public apologies. But the general simply shook his head. You can't apologize your way out of revealing your soul, Mr. Albright. You have one course of action to save what is left of your company. Fire your wife. Remove her from any connection to Ares. Implement mandatory, externally supervised bias training for all leadership, and pray that the market forgives you. But understand this, the Vanguard contract is gone forever. Thaddeus arrived home to find Prudence surrounded by cameras, giving a live interview to a right-wing media personality who was treating her like a folk hero. I stand by my actions. Prudence declared into the microphone, chin high. Someone had to stand up for American meritocracy over political correctness? My family has earned our place at those tables through blood and sacrifice, not through diversity quotas. Thaddeus walked into the room and shut the camera off. The sudden silence was deafening. James, what is wrong? The interview was going perfectly. Do you want to know who you poured wine on last night, Prudence? Thaddeus's voice was lethal, quiet, utterly drained of warmth. Some diversity hire who got above his station, I already told you. General Elias Vance, Thaddeus choked out. The director of the Joint Technology Task Force. The man who personally controls $50 billion in military contracts annually. The man who is evaluating us for the Vanguard contract, the contract that was going to save us. Prudence's face went white. It's impossible. He was just sitting there. He did belong there, Prudence. More than you ever did. He outranks every single person in that room. The full weight of the loss, $1.5 billion, the company, the family name, crushed her. Her shock quickly turned back into defensive anger. I am not a racist. I was protecting our family's interests by calling a decorated war hero a monkey. Thaddeus finally exploded. You're so blinded by your own hateful, entitled prejudice that you couldn't see past the color of his skin to see his rank. You destroyed us. Sat staring at her, his face granite. After reviewing the evidence, the viral video, Prudence's unapologetic social media posts, her father declared, I am removing Prudence Albright from all positions, effective immediately. Her trust fund is frozen pending asset review. As the board meeting ended, Thaddeus delivered the final blow. stood, his expression one of profound grief for his lost company, his lost soul. But not for his wife. I filed for divorce. He stated simply, "The papers will be served tomorrow. I won't let you destroy what little is left of the company's reputation." Prudence Albright, the former queen of the Bay Area social scene, lost everything: her position, her status, her diamonds, and her marriage. She ended up with court-mandated community service, 200 hours serving meals at a veterans shelter in Oakland. Many of the recipients being Black and Latino men and women she would have dismissed without a second thought. The irony, the exquisite, perfect irony, was that her moment of naked entitlement and racism became the single greatest catalyst for change in the defense sector in decades. General Vance didn't just fire Aries. He used the entire incident as a foundation for a new Pentagon policy. The Character Assessment Protocol. "Technical excellence means nothing," he told Congress, "if it is wrapped in hatred. Our contractors must embody the values we fight." For the result, companies across the defense industry suddenly had to prove they weren't being run by Prudence Albrights. Diversity in leadership soared. Aries Defense, under Thaddeus's desperate, penitent leadership, eventually won back contracts not by being the biggest, but by becoming the most inclusive, proving that values and profit don't have to be mutually exclusive. And Prudence. 1 year later, she was still serving meals at that shelter, not because she had to, but because she finally chose to. She helped a Black veteran fill out job applications, listened to his stories of combat and discrimination, and for the first time in her life, she saw the true cost of her privilege. She lost her fortune, but she finally found her purpose. Asterisk, but the question I want to leave you with, the one that makes this story so uniquely American, is this: did justice truly prevail? Or did the system simply use a spectacular act of injustice to finally enact long overdue change? If you had General Vance's authority, would you have simply killed the company outright, or done exactly what he did, turn their public disgrace into a national mandate for reform? Tell me what you think. Drop a comment below. This story of poetic justice and devastating consequences resonated with you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep the conversation uncut and real.